The champagne glass exploded against the marble floor, like my entire world shattering in slow motion. I stood there, frozen in my modest black dress, the one I'd saved 3 months to afford, watching Marcus wrap his arm possessively around Sarah's waist as the entire ballroom fell silent. "Ladies and gentlemen," Marcus announced, his voice carrying that confident tone I'd fallen in love with 3 years ago. "I'd like you to meet my fiancée, Sarah Wellington." The massive diamond on her finger caught the chandelier light, sending sparkles across the faces of everyone I thought were my friends. That ring. God, that ring looked exactly like the one we'd admired together at Tiffany's just last month. The one he'd promised would be mine, when the timing was right. "Juniper was always too simple for someone like me," Marcus continued, his laugh cutting through the air like a blade straight to my chest. His eyes found mine across the crowd, cold and calculating. "Thank God, I found someone who actually understands sophistication." The worst part? Sarah, my best friend since college, the woman who'd held my hair back when I was sick, who'd helped me pick out this very dress, smiled that perfect, practiced smile as she displayed the ring that should have been mine. The ring I'd foolishly believed was coming after 3 years of blind devotion. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something. Instead, I stood there like a statue, feeling the weight of 200 pairs of eyes on me, hearing the whispers that had already started. Poor Juniper. She never saw it coming. How embarrassing. Marcus and Sarah make so much more sense together. Mrs. Hartwell leaned over with that fake sympathy wealthy women perfect after decades of practice. "Don't worry, dear," she whispered loud enough for others to hear. "Someone more suitable will come along for you eventually." Suitable? Like I was a clearance item marked down for quick sale. That's when it hit me. The careful planning behind this moment. The way Sarah had insisted I come tonight. The way she'd helped me choose this dress, knowing it would make me look even more out of place among the designer gowns. The way Marcus had been distant for weeks, claiming work stress while he was actually planning the most public humiliation of my life. "How long?" I heard myself ask, my voice barely above a whisper. Marcus tilted his head, feigning confusion. "How long? What, Juniper? How long have you two been together?" Sarah's perfectly manicured hand touched her throat. A nervous gesture I'd seen 1,000 times, but never understood until now. "Juniper, please don't make a scene." "A scene?" My voice was getting stronger, fueled by 3 years of suppressed intuition, finally breaking free. "You want to talk about scenes? You've been sleeping with my boyfriend while helping me plan our future together. You held my hand last week when I cried about him being distant. You helped me pick out lingerie to surprise him with." The crowd was eating this up, phone cameras discreetly pointed in our direction. I could already see tomorrow's headlines. "Society, nobody has public meltdown at elite engagement party." Marcus stepped forward, his face a mask of practiced concern. "Juniper, you're embarrassing yourself. We were never that serious. You read too much into 3 years, Marcus. 3 years of me cooking your meals, doing your laundry, managing your schedule, listening to your dreams, supporting your career while putting my own on hold. 3 years of you promising me we were building something together. And I'm grateful for all of that," he said smoothly. "But let's be honest. We want different things. You want a simple life in the suburbs with kids and a white picket fence. I need someone who can match my ambitions, someone who understands the world I'm trying to build." The crowd murmured approval. Of course they did. In their world, ambition trumped loyalty every time. "Besides," Sarah added, her voice dripping with false kindness, "you'll be much happier with someone more compatible with your lifestyle." Compatible with my lifestyle. They meant poor. They meant simple. They meant beneath them. I looked around the ballroom one more time, at the crystal chandeliers, the gold-leafed walls, the faces of people who'd smiled at me for years, while secretly judging every outfit, every word, every breath I took in their sacred space. For 3 years, I'd tried to fit into this world for Marcus. I'd changed my hair, my clothes, my interests, my dreams. I'd made myself smaller and smaller until I was practically invisible. And now I knew why. I'd never been Marcus's girlfriend. I'd been his placeholder, keeping his bed warm while he waited for someone worthy to come along. You're right, I said finally, my voice steady now. We do want different things. I wanted someone who could love me for who I am. You wanted someone who could make you look better by comparison. I turned to leave, but Marcus's voice stopped me. Juniper, wait. His tone had shifted just slightly. I hope we can still be friends. What we had was special. Friends. He wanted to keep me around to make himself feel better about this betrayal. Maybe bring me to dinner parties as proof of how magnanimous he was, how he harboured no ill will toward the simple girl who just couldn't keep up. Friends? I repeated, tasting the word like poison. Sure, Marcus. We can be friends. Right after you explained to everyone here how you've been planning this for months. How you had Sarah help you manipulate me while you two were together behind my back. How you convinced me to take out loans to afford the lifestyle you wanted me to have, knowing you'd never help me pay them back. His face went pale. Sarah's smile faltered. How you made me feel crazy for 3 years every time my intuition told me something was wrong. How you gaslit me into believing I was paranoid and insecure when I was actually just seeing the truth you were trying to hide. The whispers had stopped. The crowd was hanging on every word now. And how you're both pathetic enough to need a public audience to feel important. Because deep down, you know this relationship is built on lies and betrayal, and you need everyone else's approval to convince yourselves it's real. I walked toward the exit, my head high for the first time in years. But just as I reached the door, I heard Marcus's final blow. This is exactly why it would never have worked, Juniper. You're too emotional, too dramatic. Sarah would never embarrass me like this. I paused, my hand on the ornate door handle, and turned back one last time. You're right, Marcus. Sarah would never embarrass you by telling the truth. Good luck building a life with someone who's already proven she'll betray her closest friend for the right price. The drive home was a blur of tears and rain. My modest apartment looked even smaller after the opulence of the Hartwell ballroom, the walls closing in as reality set in. I was alone, truly alone for the first time in years. I sat on my second-hand couch, still in the dress I'd been so proud of hours earlier, and let myself feel the full weight of the betrayal. Not just Marcus's, though that cut deep enough, but Sarah's. The woman who'd been my sister in every way that mattered had sold me out for a chance at the life she thought I didn't deserve. My phone buzzed with notifications. Social media was already exploding with videos and photos from tonight. #Juniper Meltdown was trending. Complete strangers were dissecting my heartbreak for entertainment. I was scrolling through the comments, each one a fresh wound, when another text came through. Unknown number. You deserved better than him. You always did. I stared at the message, trying to place the sender. Someone from the party? A friend trying to be anonymous? I started to type a response when another message appeared. He never saw your worth, but I did. A chill ran down my spine. This felt different from the sympathy texts I'd been receiving from acquaintances. This felt personal. Who is this? The response came immediately. Someone who's been watching. Someone who knows what you're capable of when you stop making yourself small for unworthy men. I should have been scared. Any rational person would have blocked the number and called the police. But something about those words resonated in my chest. For 3 years, I had made myself small. I dimmed my light so Marcus could shine brighter. What do you want? To give you what you deserve. To show you who you really are when you're not pretending to be someone else's idea of perfect. My hands were shaking as I typed. I don't understand. You will. Soon. But first, you need to stop crying over a man who never deserved your tears. You have work to do. The messages stopped after that, no matter how many times I tried to respond. I sat in my dark apartment, staring at the phone screen, feeling like something fundamental had shifted, like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, about to make a choice that would change everything. Outside, the storm was getting worse. Thunder rolled across the sky as I finally changed out of that cursed dress and tried to make sense of the night that had destroyed my life. but even as I grieved for the future I'd lost, I couldn't shake the feeling that something else was beginning. Something that would make Marcus and Sarah regret the day they decided to underestimate me. The last thing I remember thinking before exhaustion finally claimed me was that the mysterious texter was right about one thing. I was done making myself small. I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages. The morning sun streaming through my apartment window felt like an interrogation light, harsh and unforgiving. My phone had been buzzing all night, but I'd turned it face down after the mysterious messages stopped. Now, looking at the screen, I wished I'd thrown it out the window instead. The calls were from reporters, bloggers, and social media influencers wanting my side of the story. The messages range from fake sympathy to outright cruelty. Someone had already created a meme using a screenshot from last night's video, me standing there in my cheap dress with the caption, "When you realise you're the side character in someone else's love story." 3 million views. 3 million people had watched my humiliation on repeat. But buried between the cruel jokes and interview requests was another message from that unknown number, sent at 3:47 a.m. "Ready to stop being the victim?" This time, I didn't hesitate. I called the number directly. It rang once before a smooth, masculine voice answered. I wondered when you'd get tired of feeling sorry for yourself. "Who the hell are you?" I demanded, pacing my tiny living room. Someone who's been watching Marcus Blackwood destroy women for years. Someone who's been waiting for one of them to finally fight back. The way he said Marcus's name, with such casual contempt, made me pause. "You know him." "I know what he is. A predator who targets kind, trusting women and bleeds them dry before moving on to the next victim. The question is, are you going to be another casualty, or are you going to be the one who brings him down?" I should have hung up. This was insane. I was talking to a complete stranger about what? Revenge? But something in his voice, something in the certainty of his words, made me keep listening. "What are you talking about? Bring him down how?" "Meet me tonight. Cafe Luna on 5th Street, 8 p.m. Come alone and Juniper." His voice dropped lower. "Wear something that makes you feel powerful. You're done dressing to please other people." The line went dead. I stared at my phone, heart hammering. Every rational instinct screamed that this was dangerous, that I should block the number and try to rebuild my life quietly. But the rational part of me had been in charge for 3 years, and look where it had gotten me. I spent the day in a strange fugue state, ignoring calls and researching everything I could find about Marcus online. It was amazing what you could discover when you weren't blinded by love. His last 2 serious relationships had ended badly. Both women left town shortly after their breakups. One had filed a harassment complaint that was mysteriously dropped. The other had taken out a restraining order that had somehow been sealed. There were patterns I'd never noticed. Photos of him at charity events with different women, always the same type, brunette, petite, soft-spoken, always someone who looked grateful just to be on his arm. I'd thought I was special, but I was just the latest model in a series of disposable girlfriends. By 7:30 p.m, I was standing in front of my closet, staring at 3 years' worth of clothes chosen to make Marcus happy. Pastels and florals, conservative cuts, everything designed to make me look sweet and approachable and small. I grabbed a black leather jacket I'd bought in college, but never wore because Marcus said it made me look aggressive. Paired it with dark jeans and boots that gave me an extra 2 inches of height. For the first time in years, I looked like myself. Cafe Luna was dimly lit, all exposed brick and intimate corners. I spotted him immediately. Tall, dark-haired, sitting in the back booth with his face partially hidden in shadow. Something about his posture, the way he held himself, seemed familiar. Juniper. He stood as I approached, and I got my first clear look at his face. Alexander Cross. I'd seen him at Marcus's business events, always lurking at the edges, always watching. Marcus had dismissed him as old money with weird interests, but I'd caught him staring at me more than once across crowded rooms. "You're the mysterious caller." I slid into the booth across from him, trying to mask my surprise. "Surprised?" His mouth curved in what might have been a smile. You shouldn't be. I've been trying to get your attention for 2 years. By sending cryptic text messages and stalking me. By trying to warn you about Marcus without directly interfering. I've been where you are, Juniper. I know what it's like to have someone you trust turn your life into a performance for their entertainment. He signaled the waitress for coffee, his movements controlled and precise. Everything about him screamed money and power, but not in the flashy way Marcus projected it. This was real wealth, the kind that didn't need to announce itself. Why do you care what happens to me? I asked. Because you're not the first woman Marcus has destroyed, and you won't be the last unless someone stops him. Alexander leaned forward, his grey eyes intense, but also because I've been fascinated by you since the first time I saw you. You have this light, this genuine warmth that's so rare in our world. Watching him slowly extinguish it has been painful. His words sent an unexpected warmth through my chest. You don't even know me. I know you volunteer at the animal shelter every Saturday morning. I know you tip your barista extra when you can't afford it. I know you cry during commercials and laugh at your own jokes and turn red when you're embarrassed. His voice softened. I know Marcus never deserved you. How do you know all that? Because I pay attention. Because I see you when others don't. He pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. Me at last year's charity gala, laughing at something off camera while Marcus schmoozed with donors behind me. Look at this picture, really look at it. I studied the image. Marcus was in his element, commanding attention, but I looked lonely. Even surrounded by people, even smiling, there was something hollow in my eyes. You've been disappearing for years, Alexander said quietly, little by little becoming less yourself and more what he wanted you to be. Last night was just the final performance. So, what do you want from me? What's this really about? He leaned back, studying me carefully. I want to give you the tools to reclaim your power, to make Marcus pay for what he's done, not just to you, but to every woman he's used and discarded. And what do you get out of it? The satisfaction of watching a predator finally face consequences, and maybe, he paused, seeming to choose his words carefully, maybe the chance to know the real Juniper, not the woman you've been pretending to be. I felt something shift in my chest, a spark of the person I used to be before Marcus convinced me she wasn't good enough. What did you have in mind? Alexander smiled, and for the first time since I'd sat down, he looked genuinely pleased. Marcus thinks he won last night. He thinks he's gotten away with using you, but what he doesn't realise is that you know things about him. Private things, embarrassing things, things that could destroy his carefully crafted image. I'm not going to blackmail him. Not blackmail. Justice, there's a difference. He pulled out a tablet and opened a file. Marcus has been embezzling money from his clients' accounts. Small amounts spread across dozens of accounts, but it adds up to nearly $500,000 over the past 2 years. My blood ran cold. How do you know that? Because I've been investigating him. But I needed someone with inside access to get proof, someone who had legitimate reasons to be in his office, his apartment, his computer. You want me to spy on him. I want you to expose him for what he really is. This isn't just about revenge, Juniper. This is about stopping him before he destroys another woman's life. I stared at the tablet, my mind racing. He'll never trust me enough to get close again. Not after last night. He will, if you approach it right. Marcus's ego is his weakness. He needs to believe he's the hero of every story. If you show up broken and apologetic, begging for his forgiveness, he'll think he's won completely. The pieces were clicking into place. He'll want to gloat. Exactly. And while he's basking in his superiority, you'll be documenting everything. I looked up at Alexander, this man who claimed to have been watching me for years, who knew details about my life that I'd never shared with anyone. It should have been creepy. Instead, it felt like being seen for the first time in years. Why should I trust you? Because, unlike Marcus, I'm not asking you to change who you are. I'm asking you to remember who you were before he convinced you to forget. He reached across the table and covered my hand with his. The woman I've been watching is brave and smart and strong. She just needs to remember how to access those parts of herself again. His touch sent electricity up my arm. And if we succeed, if we expose him, then you get your life back, your power back. And Marcus learns that some women refuse to be disposable. I thought about the video circulating online, about the comments calling me pathetic and naive, about Marcus's cruel laughter echoing in my ears, about Sarah's betrayal and the years of making myself small for people who saw me as entertainment. When do we start? Alexander's smile was sharp as a blade. Tomorrow. But first, we need to discuss your transformation. The old Juniper might have been easy to manipulate, but the new one, she's going to be a force to be reckoned with. As we left the cafe together, I felt something I hadn't experienced in 3 years. Excitement. Not just about revenge, though that was certainly part of it, but about the possibility of becoming someone new, someone powerful, someone who would never again let herself be dismissed as too simple for someone else's grand ambitions. But as Alexander walked me to my car, one question nagged at the back of my mind. How had he known so much about Marcus's financial crimes? And why did his certainty about my transformation feel less like a prediction and more like a promise? Some part of me whispered that I might be trading one manipulator for another, but that part was quickly drowned out by the intoxicating rush of finally being seen as more than just a supporting character in someone else's story. The transformation began at dawn. Alexander had sent a car to pick me up. Not just any car, but a sleek black Mercedes with tinted windows that screamed money and power. The driver handed me an envelope containing a credit card, a key, and an address. Mr. Cross said to tell you that the limit is whatever makes you feel invincible, the driver said with a slight smile. The address led me to an exclusive salon in the most expensive part of town, the kind of place where appointments were booked months in advance. But they were expecting me. Miss Hartwell, the receptionist purred, using a name I'd never heard before. Mr. Cross has arranged our complete transformation package for you. For the next 6 hours, I was pampered, primped, and completely reinvented. The mousy brown hair Marcus had preferred became a rich, deep auburn with subtle highlights that caught the light. My eyebrows were reshaped, my skin perfected, my nails painted a deep crimson that looked like spilled wine. But the real change happened when they brought out the clothes. Gone were the pastels and florals. In their place, a black silk blouse that hugged my curves, tailored pants that made my legs look endless, and a blazer that added sharp angles to my silhouette. The jewellery was minimal but expensive. A watch that cost more than my car. Earrings that caught the light like captured stars. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognised myself. This woman looked dangerous. This woman looked like she could destroy a man with a single glance. Perfect! Alexander's voice came from behind me. I turned to find him leaning against the salon's doorframe, his eyes dark with approval. Now you look like who you really are. And who is that? Someone who doesn't apologise for taking up space. Someone who makes men like Marcus remember why they should be afraid of underestimating women. He took me to lunch at an exclusive restaurant where the waiters treated us like royalty, and every other patron stole glances at our table. Over wine that cost more than my monthly rent, Alexander briefed me on the plan. Marcus has a board meeting tomorrow at 3 p.m. He'll be stressed, distracted. That's when you'll show up at his office, playing the heartbroken ex-girlfriend who's realised she made a terrible mistake. And he'll believe that. His ego won't let him question it. Men like Marcus need to believe they're irresistible, that losing them would devastate any woman. He'll be expecting you to come crawling back eventually. Alexander slid a small device across the table, something that looked like a USB drive, but sleeker, more sophisticated. This goes into his computer for 30 seconds. It'll copy everything: files, emails, browser history, financial records, everything we need to destroy him. I picked up the device, surprised by how light it was. Such a small thing to hold so much power. What if he catches me? He won't, because you're going to give him exactly what he wants. A broken woman begging for another chance. He'll be too busy savouring his victory to notice what you're really doing. That evening, Alexander took me to his penthouse to practice. The apartment was stunning, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, modern art that probably cost more than most people's houses, and a wine collection that looked like a museum exhibit. "Tell me about your life with Marcus," he said, pouring us each a glass of something that tasted like liquid gold. "The real story, not the version you told yourself to make it bearable." So I did. I told him about the subtle put-downs disguised as helpful suggestions, the way Marcus would invite me to events and then spend the evening pointing out everything I was doing wrong, how he'd convinced me that my dreams of becoming a photographer were cute hobbies that I'd outgrow once I got serious about our relationship. "He isolated you," Alexander observed, "made you dependent on his approval for your self-worth. Classic narcissistic manipulation." "How do you know so much about this?" His expression darkened. "Because I lived it too. My ex-wife was a master manipulator. By the time I realized what was happening, she'd systematically destroyed every relationship I had outside of her. My friends, my family, my business partners. She convinced me they were all threats to our happiness." "What happened?" "She left me for my business partner after cleaning out my accounts, but not before making sure everyone believed I was the problem. The controlling husband who drove away his poor, innocent wife." He took a long sip of wine. "It took me 3 years to rebuild my reputation and my relationships, but I learned something valuable. The best revenge isn't getting even. It's becoming so successful that their betrayal looks like the favour it actually was." "Is that what this is about? Your revenge fantasy?" "No." His eyes met mine, intense and sincere. "This is about stopping a predator. But I won't lie, watching you reclaim your power is incredibly satisfying." We spent the night rehearsing my performance, with Alexander playing Marcus. He was disturbingly good at channeling that particular brand of condescending charm, the way Marcus could make you feel grateful for his attention while simultaneously making you feel inadequate. "Remember," Alexander coached, "you're not just playing broken. You're playing like someone who's realized she made the biggest mistake of her life. You need to make him believe that losing him has shown you how worthless you are without his guidance." It was harder than I expected, accessing that old version of myself, the woman who apologized for existing, who made herself smaller to avoid conflict, but she was still there, buried under the new confidence Alexander had helped me find. By midnight, I had it down perfectly. The trembling voice, the downcast eyes, the way I used to hunch my shoulders to take up less space. It was like putting on an old coat that no longer fit properly. "You're ready?" Alexander said, his voice soft with something that might have been pride. "Tomorrow, Marcus Blackwood is going to learn what happens when he underestimates the wrong woman." The next afternoon, I stood outside Marcus's office building, my heart hammering against my ribs. The new me was hidden under carefully chosen clothes, a simple dress, minimal makeup, flat shoes that made me shorter. I'd even messed up my hair slightly, like I'd been too distraught to style it properly. The security guard barely glanced at me. I'd been here dozens of times before, just another insignificant woman visiting her successful boyfriend. Marcus's assistant looked surprised to see me. "Juniper, after the party, I need to see him," I said, letting my voice shake just enough. "Please, I know I don't have an appointment, but it's important." She buzzed his office. I could hear his voice through the intercom, sharp with irritation until she mentioned my name. Then his tone changed, became almost amused. "Send her in." Marcus was sitting behind his massive desk when I entered, looking every inch the successful executive in his $1,000 suit. But there was something else in his expression, a predatory satisfaction that made my skin crawl. "Juniper." He didn't stand up, didn't invite me to sit. "Power plays. This is unexpected." "I'm sorry," I whispered, wrapping my arms around myself. "I know I don't have the right to be here after what I said at the party, but I had to see you." "Oh?" He leaned back in his chair, clearly enjoying this. "And why is that?" "Because I was wrong. About everything." I let tears gather in my eyes. Not hard, considering how much I hated having to do this. "I've spent the last 2 days thinking about what you said, and you were right. I was too simple for someone like you. I was holding you back. His smile was sharp as a knife. I tried to tell you that gently, but you wouldn't listen. I know. I was too stupid to see it. I took a step closer to his desk. But losing you has made me realize how much I need your guidance. Without you, I'm nothing. I don't know how to function in your world. And what exactly are you asking for, Juniper? A chance to prove that I can change, that I can become the kind of woman you deserve. I moved to the side of his desk where his computer sat open. I know you're with Sarah now, and I'm not asking you to leave her. I need to know that there might be hope for me someday. That if I work hard enough to improve myself, maybe what? He was practically purring now. Maybe you could teach me, help me become sophisticated like her. I pretended to stumble slightly, catching myself against his desk. My hand brushed against his keyboard as I steadied myself. I'm sorry, I'm so clumsy. This is why I need your help. Marcus stood up and walked around the desk to where I was standing. For a moment, I thought he was going to embrace me. Instead, he tilted my chin up with one finger, his touch making my skin crawl. You really are pathetic, aren't you? He said softly, coming here, begging for scraps of my attention. I know, I whispered, slipping the USB device into his computer while his eyes were fixed on my face. I'm sorry. I just don't know how to be better without you. The thing is, Juniper, I don't think you can be better. Some people are just born to serve others, and that's what you are. A supporting character. 30 seconds. I just needed to keep him talking for 30 more seconds. You're right, I said, letting my voice break. I see that now. Sarah is everything I could never be. She's perfect for you. She is, he agreed, his hand moving to my shoulder. But you know what? I might have use for you after all. Someone to handle the mundane details of my life while Sarah focuses on the important things. Would you like that, Juniper? To be useful to me again? The device was done. I could feel it warming slightly in the USB port. Time to end this performance. I would like nothing more, I lied, removing the device and slipping it into my pocket in one smooth motion. Good girl. His patronizing tone made me want to vomit. We'll start slowly. Maybe you can help organize my files, do some research for my cases, prove that you can follow instructions without making everything about your feelings. Thank you, I breathed. Thank you for giving me another chance. Don't thank me yet. You'll have to earn it. His smile was cruel. And, Juniper, if you ever embarrass me in public again, there won't be a third chance. Do you understand? Yes, I understand. I left his office on shaking legs, my performance so convincing that even I felt sick from the degradation. But as soon as the elevator doors closed, I pulled out my phone and texted Alexander. I got it. All of it. His response came immediately. Perfect. Time to end Marcus Blackwood. Walking out of that building, I felt like I was emerging from a tomb. The old Juniper, the one who would have actually begged for Marcus's forgiveness, was finally, truly dead. And the woman who took her place was ready for war. The war room Alexander had set up in his penthouse looked like something out of a spy thriller. Multiple monitors displayed financial records, email chains, and bank statements. All of Marcus's dirty secrets laid bare across the screens like a digital autopsy. 500,000 stolen over 2 years, Alexander said, his fingers flying across the keyboard. But that's not even the worst of it. I leaned over his shoulder, watching as he opened file after file. What do you mean? Your ex-boyfriend isn't just an embezzler, Juniper. He's been running a full-scale fraud operation. Fake investment opportunities sold to elderly clients. Forged documents. Even a few cases of identity theft. Alexander's voice was grim. We have enough evidence here to put him away for 20 years. My God, I breathed, staring at the screen. All those charity events, all those speeches about integrity and community service. A perfect cover. Who would suspect the golden boy of white-collar crime? Alexander turned to face me, his eyes dark with satisfaction. But the best part is this. He clicked open another file, and I saw Sarah's name scattered throughout financial documents. Email exchanges between her and Marcus dating back 18 months, 6 months before they supposedly got together. She wasn't just your best friend sleeping with your boyfriend, Alexander explained. She was his business partner. Half of these fraudulent accounts were opened using information she gathered from her job at the bank. They've been planning this together since the beginning. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. Everything, our friendship, her support, her shoulder to cry on when Marcus was distant, it had all been a calculated performance. She'd been mining me for information, for access, for trust. How long have you known? I asked, my voice barely steady. I have suspected for months. But I needed proof, and I needed someone with access to get it. He stood up, moving to the windows that overlooked the city. Tomorrow night is the Hartwell Foundation Gala, the biggest social event of the year. Everyone who matters will be there, including Marcus and Sarah. You want to expose them publicly. I want to destroy them the same way they tried to destroy you. In front of everyone they've been trying to impress. Alexander turned back to me, his smile sharp. But first, we need to set the perfect trap. The next 24 hours passed in a blur of preparation. Alexander had connections everywhere. Reporters, federal investigators, even a few judges who owed him favours. By the time we arrived at the Hartwell mansion, the net was already closing around Marcus and Sarah. I wore a dress that cost more than my car, midnight blue silk that hugged every curve and made me look like I'd stepped off a magazine cover. My hair was swept up in an elegant chignon, diamond earrings catching the light with every movement. I looked expensive, powerful, untouchable. You look like you could rule the world, Alexander murmured as we walked up the red carpet, photographers snapping pictures of us together. That's the plan, I replied, surprised by the confidence in my own voice. The ballroom was filled with the same people who'd witnessed my humiliation just a week ago. But this time, they looked at me differently. The whispers followed us as we moved through the crowd, but they weren't mocking anymore. They were curious, speculative. Is that Juniper? My God, she looks incredible. Who is that man with her? Alexander Cross. The Alexander Cross. Marcus and Sarah were holding court near the bar, both of them glowing with the success of their public debut as a couple. Sarah wore white, virginal and pure, the perfect mask for a woman who'd been lying to everyone for over a year. They look so happy, I observed, watching Marcus's hand rest possessively on Sarah's waist. They should enjoy it, Alexander said. It's the last time they'll be happy for a very long time. At exactly 9 p.m, the first domino fell. Marcus's phone buzzed, then buzzed again. I watched his face change as he read the messages, the colour draining from his cheeks. Sarah noticed immediately, leaning in to whisper urgently in his ear. What's happening? She asked, loud enough for me to hear. Marcus was frantically typing on his phone, his hand shaking slightly. The FBI froze my accounts. All of them. They're saying there's an investigation. Attention, everyone! A voice boomed over the sound system. The room fell silent as a tall man in a federal agent's badge stepped onto the small stage. I'm Agent Morrison with the FBI's Financial Crimes Division. We need to speak with Marcus Blackwood and Sarah Wellington immediately. The crowd erupted in shocked murmurs. All eyes turned to Marcus and Sarah, who stood frozen like deer in headlights. This is a mistake, Marcus said loudly, his lawyer instincts kicking in. I haven't done anything wrong. Mr. Blackwood, Agent Morrison continued, you're under investigation for embezzlement, fraud, and money laundering. We have evidence of criminal activity spanning the past 2 years. Evidence? Sarah's voice was shrill. What evidence? That's when Alexander stepped forward, his voice carrying easily across the silent ballroom. The evidence Miss Wellington is referring to includes financial records, email communications, and bank statements that detail a sophisticated fraud operation targeting elderly clients. Marcus spun around, his eyes locking onto mine across the crowd. For the first time since I'd known him, he looked genuinely afraid. You, he breathed. This is because of what happened between us. You vindictive little... Mr. Blackwood, Agent Morrison interrupted. I'd advise you to save your statements for your lawyer. Sarah Wellington, you're also under arrest for conspiracy, fraud, and money laundering. The crowd parted as federal agents moved through the ballroom. Marcus was still staring at me, his face twisted with rage and disbelief. "You have no idea what you've done," he snarled as the agents approached. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." "I know exactly who I'm dealing with," I replied, my voice steady and clear. "A pathetic man who builds himself up by tearing others down. A coward who hides behind charm and privilege while stealing from people who trusted him." Sarah started crying. Ugly, desperate sobs that echoed through the silent ballroom. "This isn't fair. We didn't do anything wrong. Juniper is just jealous because Marcus chose me." "Actually," I said, pulling out my phone and opening the recording app, "Marcus chose you because you were useful, just like he chose me because I was useful. The difference is I finally realized my worth." I pressed play, and Marcus's voice filled the ballroom through the sound system. "The thing is, Juniper, I don't think you can be better. Some people are just born to serve others, and that's what you are, a supporting character." The crowd gasped. Even the federal agents looked disgusted. "That was recorded yesterday," I announced, when Marcus thought I was coming back to beg for his forgiveness. Instead, I was gathering the evidence that's going to put him and Sarah in prison for the next 20 years. As the agents led Marcus and Sarah away in handcuffs, I felt a satisfaction deeper than anything I'd ever experienced. This wasn't just revenge, it was justice. Real consequences for people who thought they were above them. But as the crowd began to disperse and the excitement died down, I noticed Alexander watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Something calculating. Something that made my stomach clench with sudden unease. "We should go," he said, taking my arm. "Let the lawyers handle the rest." In the car ride back to his penthouse, Alexander was unusually quiet. When I tried to make conversation about the evening's success, he gave short, distracted answers. "Is everything okay?" I finally asked. "Everything's perfect," he replied, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. Back at his apartment, Alexander poured us champagne to celebrate, but as I sipped the expensive bubbles, that uneasy feeling in my stomach grew stronger. "I have something to show you," Alexander said, leading me to his study. He opened a file cabinet and pulled out a thick folder. Inside were photos of me. Hundreds of them. Some taken from a distance at coffee shops and charity events. Others taken with a telephoto lens through my apartment window. Photos spanning back 3 years, long before he claimed to have first noticed me. "What is this?" I whispered, my hands shaking as I flipped through the images. "I told you I'd been watching you," Alexander said calmly. "I just didn't mention how closely." There were detailed notes about my routines, my relationships, my habits, financial records showing that he'd been manipulating situations around me for years, the charity I volunteered for, the coffee shop I frequented, even the salon where I'd gotten my transformation. "You've been stalking me," I said, the champagne turning to acid in my stomach. "I prefer to think of it as protecting you, guiding you toward your full potential." Alexander moved closer, and I instinctively stepped back. "Marcus was just one obstacle in your path. There have been others." "What others?" "The job you didn't get last year. Your boss was skimming from the company pension fund. I made sure the authorities found out before you got too involved. The apartment you almost rented in the bad neighborhood. I bought the building and had it condemned rather than let you move somewhere unsafe." My blood ran cold. "You've been controlling my life. I've been perfecting it, removing the people and situations that weren't worthy of you." His eyes were bright with fervor now. "Don't you see, Juniper? Everything that's happened, Marcus, Sarah, tonight, it was all carefully orchestrated to bring you to this moment, to bring you to me." The file slipped from my numb fingers, photos scattering across the floor. "You're insane." "I'm in love," he corrected. "I have been since the first moment I saw you, and love requires sacrifice, dedication, planning. You destroyed my life. I saved your life. Do you think it was an accident that you survived the car crash 3 months ago? The one that should have killed you when you ran that red light after another fight with Marcus?" I stared at him, my mind reeling. I remembered that night, driving through tears after Marcus had stood me up for dinner again. I'd been so upset I hadn't seen the truck until it was too late. But somehow, miraculously, I'd walked away with just minor injuries while my car was totaled. The truck driver was drunk, Alexander continued conversationally. He would have killed you instantly. But I'd been following you that night, worried about your emotional state. I saw what was about to happen and managed to pull you from the wreckage before the impact. That's impossible. Nothing's impossible when you have enough money and motivation. I had the accident scene cleaned up, paid off the truck driver to disappear, and made sure the police report reflected a minor fender bender instead of a near-fatal collision. The room was spinning. You're lying. Check your medical records. Notice how vague they are about your injuries. How there are no photos of the accident scene? Alexander smiled that same charming smile that had made me trust him. I've been saving you for years, Juniper. From bad jobs, dangerous situations, unworthy men. I've been preparing you for this moment when you'd finally be ready to understand what we could be together. I backed toward the door, but Alexander was faster. He stepped between me and the exit, his demeanor still calm and collected. You can't leave, he said reasonably, not when we're so close to perfection. You belong with me now. We belong together. This is kidnapping. This is destiny. His eyes were completely cold now, and I realized with growing horror that I'd escaped one psychopath only to fall into the hands of another. Marcus was small-time, Juniper, a petty criminal with delusions of grandeur. But me, I have the resources to give you everything you deserve, the life you were meant to live. I looked around the study, seeing it with new eyes. The expensive art, the perfect furniture, the view of the city spread out below like a kingdom. It was beautiful. It was also a prison. And if I refuse, Alexander's smile never wavered. Refuse what? You're here voluntarily. You came to me for help. You participated willingly in tonight's plan. Who's going to believe you want to leave? He was right, and we both knew it. I'd walked into this trap with my eyes wide open, too blinded by revenge and attraction to see the bars closing around me. Besides, Alexander added, pulling out his phone, I'd hate for the authorities to discover that some of the evidence against Marcus was planted. That would really complicate his prosecution, wouldn't it? I stared at him in horror. You framed him. I enhanced the existing evidence. Marcus is guilty of everything he's been accused of. I just made sure the proof was undeniable. His expression turned predatory. But if you try to leave me, if you try to expose what we've done, I'll make sure Marcus goes free. And then I'll make sure he knows exactly who was responsible for his arrest. How long do you think you'd survive his revenge? The walls closed in around me as I realized the perfect elegance of his trap. He'd made me complicit in his schemes, tied my freedom to his silence. I was as trapped as any bird in a golden cage. Now, Alexander said, moving closer, with that same dangerous smile, shall we discuss our future together? Because, darling, we have so much to plan. As his hand reached for my face, I understood with crystal clarity that I'd never been the hunter in this story. I'd always been the prey, and the predator who'd been stalking me for 3 years had finally decided it was time to feed.